What's up, everyone? Welcome to Let It Be Heard. I'm your host, Jaden Heard, and I'm here with a very special guest of mine, Seth Gruber from White Rose Resistance. Seth, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks, Jaden.
Dude, so first of all, I want you to tell us a little bit more about White Rose Resistance, and we'll get into, what exactly you guys do. But I just want to applaud you a little bit, man, on the incredible conference that you put on in DC, last month prior to the March for Life. But real quick, can you give everybody just a brief background on who you are, where you came from, and how you ended up founding White Rose Resistance?
Yeah. I'll try to keep it brief. Homeschooled Christian kid from Los Angeles County, before everything was as gay as it is now. Still super gay because it's LA, but not super duper gay. Grew up in the 90s, early 2000s when you were still had friends that were pro-choice, still had friends that were gay, and they didn't want to put you in a Bernie Sanders gulag. So I was kind of that last generation of like a semi-normal public square, still perverted, but like people weren't violent and chopping genitals off. And then I went to public high school just because I wanted to. And then my senior year, I did my senior project on abortion, and the high school told me I couldn't pick that topic. So I threatened to sue them for viewpoint discrimination because they didn't know that I was homeschooled. And so I did whatever I wanted. They backed off. And so I learned an important lesson there. Then I saw aborted baby imagery for the first time at 18 years old, my senior year of high school, while doing volunteer work for my topic. And I'm looking at mutilated, emaciated, dissected baby pieces in the first trimester. Eyeballs, hands, feet, tongues, ears. Not a blob of tissue, Jaden. It was clearly a little baby, and this was first trimester,
Right.
First 12 weeks. So I'd never seen that imagery before. And my mom ran a pregnancy resource center while pregnant with me and very involved in the pro-life issue throughout our childhood. So I was like, well, if I've never seen how horrific abortion is, I bet most people haven't. Then I went off to a fake Christian college in Santa Barbara called Westmont, and just stone's throw away from Oprah's house. And then I discovered that they had pro-abortion faculty professors on the payroll, several of them. And I became sort of a pain in the rear to the institution. I ended up holding aborted baby signs outside of the college campus, dining commons, because of their refusal to fire these professors and their refusal to take a pro-life position on abortion. I actually started a Students for Life club, and it was the first pro-life club that had ever been at that university. So I started there. I was a freshman in the fall of 2010. I graduated 2014. And so I learned an important lesson that the problem is way less gay communists, Jaden, and Ashtoreth worshipping transvestites that want to sexualize your children. The problem is way more a flatulent, cowardly, impotent church who's no longer a threat to evil. And in fact, they're often creating advocates for the enemy with a little bit of Christianese sprinkled on top of it. And so those were the two important lessons that I kind of took with me that became the tone and tenor of the ministry. And then I joined a nonprofit. I did some pro-life speaking for years. And then we launched the White Rose Resistance right after the overturning of Roe versus Wade. And we're 3.5 years old, coming up on 4 years this June, I guess. And that's it. And so we're a digital media activism organization named after the Christian resistance anti-Nazi movement in Germany in 1942 and 1943. Not all Christians, but mostly Christian. And Sophie Scholl of the White Rose Resistance, kind of the most inspirational figure from that movement. She was 21. Her brother had helped start the White Rose Resistance in Nazi Germany. And they were just trying to wake people up, right? So they would have leaflets and pamphlets. They distribute them everywhere. It was a social media campaign pre-digital age, right? Saturate the market with alternative perspectives to wake people up and get them thinking. Right. And so that they were most of them all had their heads chopped off. They were all arrested and murdered by the Third Reich for trying to wake people up and speak out against the regime. And so we're facing a similar but far more deadly Holocaust today, and the church is just as silent. And so we're trying to rebuild the White Rose Resistance for this generation. And so, that's the story.
Amazing. I really enjoyed knowing that story, getting to know that story when I was watching the 1916 Project, with
Yeah.
which everyone should check out. But yeah, I really enjoyed knowing just why the White Rose Resistance out of everything you could possibly name your pro-life organization. I want to get into a little bit. You mentioned in your your testimony there a little bit about how you first saw abortion in imagery. Now, a lot of people, especially in the pro-life movement, especially, but obviously your average Joe who doesn't even understand this issue at all, they really are against abortion imagery. What's like the defense of abortion imagery?
Everyone who's against the public display of abortion imagery, Jaden, is a hypocrite. Every single one of them. Because none of those people have any problem with our own historical textbooks, bro, that showed lynchings,
Right.
that showed piles of Jewish bodies at a concentration camp. They
Right.
have no problem with the Wilberforce imagery of a black man whose back is like absolutely emaciated because of all the whipping, and his flesh is like torn off his back. And that was used in the anti-slavery campaign with the Clapham group,
Yep.
with Wilberforce at the helm. Remember the famous coin, "Am I not a man and a brother?" Right? He's kneeling
Yeah.
down and he's in shackles and he's just like, I mean, so everyone who's like, "Oh, that's so mean," showing, well, how could you do that? That's traumatic for people to see abortion imagery. None of those people have a problem with any other kind of shocking imagery that's used to portray injustice. And what makes it worse, Jaden, is they're perfectly fine with the continued use of graphic imagery exposing injustices that are often not happening anymore.
That's right.
But they have a huge problem using graphic imagery exposing injustices that are happening every day right now. It's legal and we fund it with our tax dollars. Dude, tell me you're a hypocrite without telling me you're a hypocrite. Now, we don't intentionally go around shoving it in children's faces. We don't even exclusively use graphic imagery. I'm not saying it's the, one size fits all, perfect strategy, and that's the only way to fight abortion. That's stupid. But it's certainly a strategy. It's certainly a tool to expose injustice. And we have plenty of signs that are not graphic. But do we use some graphic imagery? Yeah, we do. We do use some graphic imagery. But we don't like do it outside of a church unless it's a rainbow cult church. And we try to give parents warnings if we're in a place where there's children, so so we can respect parents' rights to choose when to have those conversations with their children. But yeah, if you're a pro-life Christian and you spend your time whining and complaining and trying to stop pro-lifers from showing the public what abortion looks like, you're a hypocrite.
No, yeah, I totally agree with you, by the way. And I think it's one of the necessary things we've seen in every injustice, a human rights violation. You have to display it. It is similar to the gospel, Seth, if you think about it. How is anybody going to truly repent of their sins, put their full trust in Jesus, if they don't, first of all, know the graphic image of what they actually are, which is a wretched sinner who has the wrath of God on them, right?
Yeah,
and
that's a
so
good
the
point.
good news is not good without the bad news,
Yeah,
right?
that's right.
And similar to abortion, why should we abolish something that no one really knows what it is? I want to get your take on this. So, and this kind of goes into the next part I wanted to get into with the pro-life movement as a whole and actually ending this thing once and for all, right? If we want to end this thing once and for all, we have to start doing things that actually end abortion, which one of those things is abortion imagery, which is why I want to ask you about that. But where do you find yourself in the pro-life movement right now? Like, do you find yourself to be someone who is content with what we're doing right now? Or do we need to start changing some things? And kind of walk me through that. We'll go from there.
Well, firstly, I mean, there's always those who came before us who deserve honor and recognition. Only a fool, reaches his summit and stands there and says, "I did this by myself." Only a fool stands on the shoulders of giants and thinks that he's flying. Okay. And you're a navel gazing narcissist if you're unwilling to give any recognition or honor to principled leaders who made lots of sacrifices in their own life to try to end abortion, to try to overturn Roe versus Wade. Does that mean every single person in the pro-life movement for the last 53 years has been a principled, virtuous warrior with nothing to critique? No, of course not. Every movement gets messy. Every movement has snakes. Every movement has people who are just in it for the shine and the glory and maybe some nice paychecks. But we have had plenty of faithful warriors who got us to this point, who truly want to end abortion. Some of them have passed. Some of them are still here, kicking, screaming, and trying to wake people up. And they deserve honor and recognition. So firstly, that's what ought to be said. The younger pro-life leaders who maybe have a large social media following, maybe they have, films, podcasts that are popular. We should never bask in the shine and the opportunities the Lord's given us without honoring and recognizing those who came before us. Mm-hmm. But there is also a lot of criticism to go around. And there have been different strategies in the abortion wars, some better than others, and some downright wicked. And I think that there are people in this movement now, and there have been people in this movement for the last 50 years who didn't wake up every morning, who didn't have prayer meetings every week with a somber, tearful, mournful, righteous, indignant attitude that thousands of babies are still having their heads chopped off and their brains sucked out and their eyeballs poked out every 24 hours in this country. There have been people who have not treated this as the greatest human rights violation, maybe ever, Jaden, but they've treated it as a paycheck. And what's weird when you say that, because people lose their mind, they don't like hearing that. They're like, no, these are pro-life. They love babies. It's like, well, that's been true of every other movement. Every other movement, whether it was a social justice movement, actually, I don't really like that phrase, but whether it was a justice movement, or whether it was a spiritual movement, or whether it was a economic business boom, any other movement is open for criticism. Every movement has problems with people trying to sneak in and use it to benefit themselves. Why would that be different with the pro-life movement? Of course, there have been actors, and there are actors today, who through their decisions seem to be telling you they actually don't want to end this because keeping it legal is a really nice paycheck, Jaden, people pay me a decent amount of money to keynote their galas, to be their fundraiser speaker at their fundraisers. And I'll probably have a lot less of those coming in now that we launched a C4 and we'll be working to get equal rights protection passed at the state level. I don't care. Whatever. But I usually break your fundraising record. And so I'm worth it. I have a certain fee. And then I can save up for my children and my grandchildren, or maybe I can take my wife to Europe for our 10th anniversary. But that's not our ministry. That's my own personal speaking. When I come to keynote someone's gala and I'm helping them break their fundraising record. When I speak at churches, when I speak at schools, when I speak at conferences, if I charge, it goes all into the ministry. I don't see a dollar of it. And I personally, my wife and I personally have sacrificed quite a bit, and we actually pour quite a bit of money into our own ministry. Okay. Why? Why do I say all that? Because I don't want to be doing this, dude, in my 40s or 50s. I actually want to end this. I don't want to march for life for the rest of my life. Yeah. And with Roe v. Wade overturned, what happened? Well, for your listeners, they probably know, but it went back to the states. So there's no reason, bro, that we can't garner up the testicular fortitude and awaken enough pastors and believers in deep red states, and I'm talking North and South Dakota, Arkansas, Tennessee, Florida, Missouri, Idaho, just to name a few. There's no reason why in those states we can't get a full ban on abortion. which just means giving the unborn child legal protections. That's all it means. Which means that if you kill the baby, there's consequences. Oh my gosh, shocker! So this is actually pretty basic. You don't have a legal right to something if there's not punishment or consequences to those who impede or violate said right. So the flip side of a right is actually the state punishing those who violate that right. So that's how rights work.
You're being too rational here, man. I don't understand, right? You mean to tell me that if you commit the crime, you should be punished for it? Like, what are you doing, man? That's not very loving of you, bro.
That ticks a lot of people off, Jaden, but we're winning the argument because like everyone, the whole movement's moving this way. Everyone recognizes there's no way you're going to end abortion if the red states that have banned it on paper make exceptions for the aborting mother. There's no way you'll end it because you're teaching actually the conscience of the people, Jaden. Because so Aristotle. So pause really quick. Aristotle said statecraft is soulcraft. Okay, and so what he meant by that is that yes, Anthony Breitbart is right. The famous line that politics is downstream of culture. But culture is also downstream of politics, which is kind of what Aristotle was getting after, meaning that like the state through its laws and policies, standards, procedures are actually prescribing moral behavior. It's actually teaching moral truths. Mm-hmm. And we have a really bad tendency as Americans, especially the last few generations, to just kind of, as we grow up and we swim in what are called the cultural milieu, our cultural waters, we have this really silly tendency of just assuming that whatever's legal is moral. We have this really silly asinine tendency of assuming that whatever's legal is right or is good. And so we've had, a lot of people, Jaden, grow up in a cultural milieu in which abortion was legal and it was defended under the language of equality, women's rights. And so that shaped the moral conscience of the Woodstock generation. It shaped the moral conscience of Gen X, millennials, and it was and has been shaping the conscience of the Zoomers to just assume that this thing's chill. It's all good. It's right. It's true. It's ethical. It should be defended. And so when the state makes something legal or illegal, it's actually teaching moral truths. It's shaping the moral conscience of the people. And so when pro-lifers in the establishment, and I'm talking about those people I was referring to a few minutes ago on your show, Jaden, the people who the choices they make seem to insinuate that they don't actually want to end this. The choices they make and the rhetoric they use seem to insinuate that they'd like to be fighting abortion forever because it's really profitable. And I say that with the recognition of what a serious accusation that is. I don't say that lightly. I'm saying that I assume the best about everyone, Jaden, until they give me a reason not to. Mm-hmm. And so when the law is saying it is bad to kill babies, and all those deep red states I just mentioned for your listeners, Jaden, they have banned abortion. Well, Florida and that not technically, but all those other red states have pretty much banned abortion. But there's a line written into their laws that the mother can't be prosecuted, so she is exempt from all consequences. Even if she gets that illegal abortion, even if she kills the baby when she knows it's against the law. And so Milton Friedman made this great point, Jaden. He said, if you adopt the view that man is not responsible for his own behavior, that society is somehow responsible, why should he seek to make his behavior good?
Right. I totally agree.
If people are victims, if women are victims, always victims, and they are sometimes. Just to be clear for your listeners, women definitely are victims. Oftentimes, not 100% of cases, but women can be victims of the abortion industry. They can be victims of the lies that they've heard from their boyfriend, their father, sometimes their youth group teacher, their lesbian dance theory professor at UC Berkeley, or the father who's pressuring them to get an abortion and telling lies to them. Like, okay, sure, like can we acknowledge that? Yeah. Like, we can all be victims in some case. Most are victims. Most were themselves sexually abused as children.
That's actually true. Yep.
But that doesn't mean that we would say the pedophile who's now an adult should have legal immunity and impunity to anally rape 10-year-olds.
Yeah.
We would say he should be punished because if you don't punish evil, like baby killing or anally raping 10-year-olds, then there's no disincentive to those people to stop doing those evil things. So like this is actually pretty basic, but if the law teaches that you're a victim and society's responsible, then there's no reason for the people or those who might do bad things to even seek to improve themselves. You're teaching them that they're stupid sheep who are not responsible for their own behaviors. And so this is not just a political conversation, it's necessarily a moral, metaphysical, and philosophical conversation, because that was our founders' understanding of this republic. These laws don't happen in a vacuum. They're embedded with deep metaphysical, eternal, philosophical premises and truth. And the role of the lawmaker, the role of a man of the state, the role of a philosopher king is to actually promote the good, the right, and the true. With a recognition that like these rights come from God, and like we're gonna be like the lawmaker is like gonna have a higher standard because like his decisions had a direct impact on the people who live under those laws. And we have come so far, we've fallen so far from our founders' Christian understanding of this republic. So that's sort of a flyover of some of this stuff. And so yeah, where are we at? What are we doing? We just believe this crazy thing that babies are people, that every human being has a right to life in virtue of being human, not in virtue of any like functional capacities or performance indicators. So like our rights are not based on our IQ, our melanin, our size, our dependency. Like as soon as you go down that route, you open up the door for human rights abuses this side of the womb as well. It's only by applying the full personhood and right to life of all human beings in virtue of their humanness that you can actually guarantee human equality for all human beings. Only in that perspective will we actually safeguard this republic and have a new birth of freedom. And these were the same arguments, by the way, that Lincoln made against slavery. He frequently made the point that if the slave is not a man or a person because of his skin color or intellect, then there's no reason why the albino or the high IQ person is more of a person than the plantation owner. Because as soon as you base rights and personhood on things that come in varying degrees, things that we don't share equally, then you destroy human equality, not just for the victim in question, but you destroy human equality for all human beings. And you hand power over to the state to entrench a tyrannical system where they just get to pick and choose who has rights. And that's why our founders said we hold these truths to be self-evident, which is another way of saying duh. That's what that means. Yeah, that's what that means. We hold these truths to be axiomatic or obvious.
Axiomatic,
that all human beings are endowed by their creator. So this is not a performance view of personhood. It's not as if it's not like someone gave you these rights and can take them away. No, we're endowed by the creator with inalienable rights, and among these are the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And that's why Jezebel Harris, Jaden, when she was still VP, gave a speech. People forgot about this. This is one of the most interesting political moments in American history, in my opinion. And she started quoting the opening words of our founding documents. But unlike Sleepy Joe, who said, "You know the thing."
You know the thing, yeah.
Remember that we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that you know the thing. Instead of doing that, what Jezebel Harris did, Jaden, is she said, we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that are endowed by their creator with certain inalienable rights, that among these are the right to liberty and the pursuit of happiness. I don't know if your listeners remember this, but it was one of the most profound political moments in American history, in my humble opinion. She paused at the word life. You can go find the clip. She paused at the word life, skipped it, and said liberty and the pursuit of happiness. Now,
insanity.
Is that a hiccup? Is that a coinkydink? No, that's an intentional choice because she knew as VP, if she were to quote those profound and famous words, all of the headlines from pro-family and conservative organizations the next day would have been VP Harris, who supports abortion through point of birth, says we're all endowed with the right to life. So when you are pro-abortion, when you believe that children in the womb through all 9 months of pregnancy have no right to life, you have to drop that language.
Yeah.
And that's why our founders created an order of rights. Right.
That's right.
The right to liberty and the pursuit of happiness don't mean much. In fact, they mean nothing at all if you can be murdered. So if you don't get the right to life right, you won't get any other rights right? And that's why those who murder the unborn cannot be trusted to govern the born, because they don't even believe in that first right, upon which all other rights flow from and are built on. And
Right.
so a complicated, maybe seemingly confusing, round the barn way to say, until the unborn child has legal protections, protected by the state, that's right, protected by the law, endowed by their creator, which means no one can take those rights away. So governments are instituted among men to recognize and protect those rights. That until the unborn child has that right to life protected in law, then all of our rights are also up for grabs.
I totally agree.
Yep.
And I also, I mean, it's a spiritual thing as well. Like you said, Paul literally says that the law is a tutor, right? I mean,
Right.
if the law shows you what is moral, and that's the duty of the government. As a matter of fact, that's why it's established in Romans chapter 13. But
Yeah.
I want to transition because I know you have to go pretty soon. I want to at least get this in, man. When I was at Life or Death Con, I mean, none of us knew that Abby Johnson would get into dirty water we didn't know that she was like an alligator coming after her prey in the pro-life establishment. And I really just want to say I really appreciate you, first of all, having the guts and the integrity to still let her come up there and speak, and then later on have her on a panel where she then doubled down. And I also really appreciate it, and everybody can go check out the Life or Death Con. I think they can check out the panel, I think, on YouTube as well.
Yeah.
But right after she got done speaking, you immediately went up there, you grabbed the microphone, and you said, "We apologize to no one about having Abby Johnson," because you already knew that she basically committed career suicide doing what she did. So real quick, I just want to get your perspective on why you did what you did and you let Abby Johnson speak and give her that platform. And what are your thoughts on what she actually said as far as what she said?
I told her not to hold back beforehand, and I knew it would be a banger. I just didn't know how powerful and how relentless she was going to be. And we were so proud of her. One of the things that I think some of my friends like about speaking at my events is they know it's probably like the least censored stage. One of the least censored stages they could get in America. And not to say there's not other like incredible organizations who don't give a bleep. There are plenty of other incredible organizations, but we really don't care. Like I don't care. And if we lose donors over that, and we have, I don't care. We're called to faithfulness. We're called to be obedient to the Lord. And we're called to lead in a way that the church has not led in these fights for a long time. So Abby said a lot of things that I think, frankly, were probably overdue. And she got heckled some. The security had to escort 2 or 3 people out.
Yep.
But she got a standing ovation for maybe a full minute afterwards. And she probably did commit career suicide in the sense of the pro-life establishment and pregnancy center fundraisers who might not want to touch her now. But those kinds of fighters are the people that we want to ally ourselves with, because people don't follow titles, they follow courage. And the church is, I think, starting to wake up, and people are starting to realize, man, we have a higher calling, and we're actually called to fight for life and for the family, and that's our heritage. This is what my next film is about, The Last Stand. But that's our legacy. That's our heritage as the church. And that was what my talk at Life or Death Con was about. And when we remember and when we reclaim that heritage, we actually have a lot of fun because we're doing exactly what the Lord created us to do. And so, yeah, Abby just called out a lot of the capitulation, the cowardice, and maybe even the betrayal of pro-life organizations and certain assumptions in the movement that women should never face consequences. And it's not really about women. It's just about the protection of the baby. You know, it's not like we're obsessed with throwing women in prison. Like no one's obsessed with, no one supports criminalizing evil behavior or punishing evildoers because they have some weird obsession or complex with the evildoers. Mm-hmm. People get a cultural and spiritual obsession with criminalizing evil and punishing evildoers because of how much they love the victims, because of how much they want to protect the vulnerable, the voiceless, and the young, who are more often than not the victims of evil. Every time the church retreats, Jaden, the old foes resurrect. This is just like, we don't have time to go into the whole history of like culture war. But like every time the church retreats and like just reads Andy Stanley books and just preaches like the careful articulation of the gospel with their lips, but they don't live it out in the public square. They don't defend the young. Like every time the church retreats, neo-paganism has a renaissance.
Yeah.
And every time neo-paganism has a renaissance, the first victims are women and children.
Yep.
Every single time. And the history of revival, by the way, Jaden, which is an interesting conversation for another time, one of the first fruits of revival for 2,000 years, one of the first evidences that we have in history of true revival, one of the first things it produces is the church starts caring for women and children again. It starts protecting women and children again. So that's always been our heritage. It's always been our legacy. And we're not here to manage evil. That doesn't mean that an incremental victory is bad. If we can't fully ban abortion, but we get a really good law against it, then we're coming back next legislative session, baby. We're coming back next legislative session to try to fully ban this thing, right? Like Wilberforce supported legislation to refit slave ships to reduce the suffering on the passage to the British colonies. Does that ban slavery? No. But he was trying to get some wins to awaken people's cultural conscience. So like some incremental victories are fine, but we have to be clear, like we're not here to just manage this in perpetuity. We actually want to end it for the glory of Aslan, for the furtherance of his kingdom, and to be a fragrant incense and aroma to a post-Christian culture who needs to be reminded there's still a king and he's on the throne. And so I think Abby's message started shaking the boat that needed to be shaked, and hopefully reawakening our spiritual intuitions and reminding us why we're here and what we're called to. So, yeah, man.
Amen. Well, Seth, I gotta say, man, you're by far, and it's not even close. You're my favorite pro-life advocate by far. It's not it's not close. There's like Abby's in there as well, but I mean, there's just dude, there's barely anyone really who has a platform that y'all have are really saying these things. There's a lot of people saying them, but not with the platform and reaching you guys have.
Men in the movement.
I was going to say that.
Men have stood back for a long time and watched the pro-life movement be filled with pink rainbows and baby showers, which has its place, like celebrating life and having sort of a feminine, like nurturing spirit. It's actually a really beautiful thing. But when you're warring against demons, when you're at war with that ancient foe, named Molech and Baal,
it's the same one,
serve Lucifer, that's not a time for baby showers and pink rainbows. Like, there was a declaration of war from the first chapters of the Bible. Remember, people forget this part. They remember usually like it's Adam and Eve, not Adam and Steve, right, Jaden? They remember that like, oh yeah, created in the image of God, male and female, he created them. So there's only two genders. They remember something about like have a bunch of babies, like be fruitful and multiply, Fill the earth
Something
and
like that.
subdue it.
By
They
the
might
way,
remember the word dominion, Jaden. They might remember the word dominion, exercise dominion. They might even remember the gospel in Genesis 3:15, the proto-evangelium, that that he will strike your heel, but you will strike his heel, but he will crush your head.
That's right.
But you know the piece they often forget, that we often forget, bro. The Lord says to the serpent, I will set enmity. Go Google that word. I will set enmity between you and her. So who's that? That's Lucifer and Eve.
Yep.
And between your offspring and her offspring. Well, wait. When he said your offspring, who's that?
That's obviously his children.
That's Satan's offspring.
Yeah, that's right.
Well, from the first chapters of the Bible, Jaden, we have a declaration of flipping war.
Yeah.
There will be war between the descendants of the serpent and the descendants of Eve. We're told from the first chapters of the Bible, not only will Eve have ancestors and descendants, but so will Satan.
That's right.
And there will be a war between those descendants forever.
Yeah.
Until the final war, until the last battle.
Yeah.
And we've forgotten that. We've forgotten that there was a war declared from the opening pages of the Bible, of the origins of man. And we don't live like we're at war, dude. So, yes, I'm grateful for any Esther, for any warrior, female, that's contending for children. That's a family calling, to contend for life, to contend. That's beautiful. That's all fine. But I do not think, and this will get me in trouble, but I do not think that the war against Moloch and Baal and baby killing should be led solely by women. Just as I don't think women should be sent overseas to bleed out and die to keep America free. Because in each case, it's actually a bloody, violent fight. And while everyone has their place in it, it ought to be men who were made to protect, who were made to provide, and who were made to fight, that should actually be leading the charge against the most ancient battle. Why is Satan obsessed with killing babies? Because 2,000 years ago, it was a baby that came to defeat him.
That's right.
Why is Satan obsessed with killing babies? Because he knew that one of those descendants of Eve was eventually going to come. One of those descendants from the first conflict in the garden, at some point in her lineage, there was going to be a king. And he was going to come to declare war and be victorious over Lucifer and a third of the fallen angels he took with him. Every baby is a possible king who will destroy the serpent. Why does Herod wipe out all the babies, bro?
There you go.
Is that a neutral political act? No, that's Satan working through political leaders to kill babies. Does that sound like the 21st century? Satan working through political parties and leaders to kill babies. That's been going on forever. Why? Because every baby is a reminder that his days are numbered. And there's a day on the calendar when he'll be thrown into the lake of fire. So in the meantime, his MO, his operating procedure is heartbreak and murder. Steal, kill, and destroy. Prowls around like a lion looking for those to devour.
Yeah.
Call me crazy, Jaden, but I think men should be at the front of such a bloody, dark, and violent fight. And so at the White Rose Resistance, yeah, we're pretty masculine, and we're trying to enrage the hearts of men to learn how to be angry at evil again and to learn how to rule themselves so that they can win the world.
Amen. Well, Seth, I could probably say 100,000 things more, and same with you, but I want to honor your time. So, Seth, I really appreciate you joining. Where can people get involved? Because that's the most important thing, right? Where can people get involved, or how can people get involved with the White Rose Resistance? And, say any last things that you would like to say.
Yeah, go to thewhiterose.life, thewhiterose.life. That's the White Rose Resistance website, and you can check out our activism page. You can check out our media, our resources if you join. And I'd love to have you join as an ally at $35 a month or more. You get a battle box in the mail because welcome to the war. And then you join our White Rose app where we have courses, curriculum, live trainings, master classes on activism, on apologetics, on debating. We do hot seat trainings for pro-life people to be able to like actually practice these conversations to, be pro-life ninjas. At $70 a month, we do a book club, Books in the Barracks. People read books with me every 2 months. We talk about them live on Zoom. We do a lot to equip our people who support the ministry because they are the resistance. This is the church's job. And then if you join at $35 a month or more, you actually get a free ticket to The Last Stand in June in Denver on June 5th and 6th. And then I have a show, the Seth Gruber Show, Tuesdays and Thursdays on anywhere that you watch or listen to podcasts. And so that's how people can get engaged. And we have a whole community on our app where you can just meet like-minded warriors from around the country.
Amen. Well, Seth, thank you again, man. It was such an honor to speak with you. And I look forward to fighting this war that we're in right now with you. And we'll win back righteousness for this country to the glory of God.
I love it.
Seth, thank you so much, bro.
Thanks, Jaden. Keep it up.